I was the one saddle broke that horse, so I knew there was a grin behind those dozy eyes of his. But other folks made comment to me they thought the horse held up just fine, and with remorse befitting a horse in his position. Naturally, I kept my quiet. Nope, can't say as Peralt's death bothered me much, but I did commence to worry about where all this left me and the other boys who worked Four Arrows. Naturally, as foreman of the ranch, everyone looked to me for answers, as though just being Ranahan made me privy to Peralt's personal affairs. Oh, now there I go getting ahead of myself. You're looking a little adrift, son. Maybe I best back up a piece so as you can understand just how things stood back then. The summer of 1892. The only reason I'd gotten the dang job as ranch foreman in the first place, that was in 84, was I was the first range hand that Peralt ever set eyes on that had him some education beyond first or second grade. I could write and cipher, so even though I was only 20 and considerable younger than the rest of the crew, Peralt gave me the job. Well, what with me being a tall and scrawny stretch of water and having a voice that never quite finished pubertating, I remember me having one awful time riding roughshod in those early days. Anyway, Samuel J. Peralt was what we nowadays marvel at and tend to elevate in our conversations. The self-made man that somehow is only available in these United States. I know right now you're thinking about them Morgan, Weyerhaeuser, Rockefeller, and Carnegie boys. Well, drop down a few dozen pegs, and then you might stub your toe on old Peralt. I've seen me plenty of them moving pictures, and them folks in Hollywood these days seem to have a good bead on the likes of old Peralt. Short, cocky, bull-faced, and mad as hell about it. Kind of like, what's that kid's name? Cagney. Yeah, Jimmy Cagney. Peralt's story wasn't so special in the early years, except when he told it in the later years. He would have told you he led a wagon train along the Oregon Trail. He was a cook for some eastern nymphs de prairie heading west to share their wares. That he fought the Indians with his bare hands to lay claim to his land. He stole it, plain and simple. And that he built his empire with hard work of other men, honest sweat, he sweat only when he drank, and constant prayer that his competition would fail. Hell, the way he told things, no doubt he's sitting around heaven to this day waiting to be offered a shot at sainthood. That is, if he hadn't stolen the title by now. Well, whether you take in his story or mine, what you got to remember is his kingdom, Four Arrows, was one of Oregon's largest and finest spreads. Even his brand, Four Arrows all pointing to face each other, was a good example of his power and conceit. Like he was the center of everything. Yep, that's just what it was. Conceit. Just remember the Four Arrows brand, and that's all you need to remember about Peralt. So, if I was so smart, having got through 8 grades and all, what was I doing under Peralt's stubby little thumb? Well, I was only 20 when I signed on, don't forget, and old Peralt seemed to me like God Almighty hisself. Oh, we had us a few years of lean back then, when nobody had nothing and Peralt was always borrowing it. But mostly we did just fine, on account of old Peralt was damn shrewd. Too shrewd. I reckon that's why it didn't take me long to cultivate me a strong dislike for him. And I always planned to move on, but things got mighty confusing by 87, and, well, one thing led to another, and before I knew it, that dang horse shot Peralt before I could ever tell the old fart where to go. I remember the first night after the funeral. We all of us rode back to the house at Four Arrows. At first, us wranglers was quiet, just watching our horses' feet and listening to our saddles crunch and our bridles jingle, which was music, pure and simple to any cowboy's ear. Zeb Hardy started first with that damn contagious chuckle of his. Then Jay, the kid, started in. Well, before you knew it, we was all laughing so hard that old Peralt probably heard us from his grave down by the Walla Walla River. Cripes, by the time we got back to the bunkhouse, we decided to pull the shoes off Peralt's horse and retire him to the greenest pasture we could find at Four Arrows. St. Cayuse, we'd call him, redeemer of oppressed cowhands. Yes, sir.